Imagine waking up each morning free from the weight of stress, regrets, or the constant pressure to meet the expectations of others. Now, picture yourself moving through the day with clarity and purpose, no longer trapped in the cycle of trying to please everyone or rushing through life in an endless chase for more. What if I told you that as you grow older, the secret to a happier, more peaceful life isn't about doing more or striving harder, it's actually about doing less? Buddhist wisdom, as well as countless life experiences, suggest that embracing simplicity can unlock a deep sense of fulfillment and calm. Aging isn't about accumulating more achievements, it's about shedding unnecessary worries and embracing a slower, more intentional way of living. In this video, we'll explore 8 crucial things you should consider becoming lazy about as you age, less about external pressures and more about nourishing your inner peace. Stick around until the end of the video, because these simple shifts can radically transform your daily experience and guide you toward a life of true contentment. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. 1. Stop overthinking what others think of you. Imagine a woman in her 70s, who has spent her entire life worrying about what others think. From her teenage years to her adult life, she shaped her choices based on the expectations and judgments of others. She spent countless hours wondering whether she was doing the right thing, whether she looked the right way, or whether she was good enough in the eyes of others. But as the years went by, something started to change. She realized that all this time spent living for others had kept her from fully experiencing the joy and freedom of being herself. In her 70s, after decades of seeking validation and approval, she finally reached a profound moment of clarity. She let go of the need to please everyone and embraced her true self. The moment she stopped trying to fit in, she felt a sense of liberation she had never experienced before. No longer did she worry about conforming to society's standards or living up to others' expectations. She found peace in just being herself, unapologetically. This shift wasn't just freeing, it was life-changing. It allowed her to step into her power and live with authenticity, free from the chains of external judgment. In my own life, I've experienced a similar transformation. As I've grown older, I've started to let go of the constant pressure to meet the expectations of others. At first, it felt unsettling. I wondered how my choices might be perceived and whether I was doing the right thing. But as I continued to shed that weight, I discovered a deeper sense of self-love and peace. I learned that approval from others doesn't bring lasting happiness. It's the approval of oneself that truly matters. This shift has been nothing short of transformative. The more I embraced authenticity, the more I realized how much energy I had been wasting on seeking validation. Letting go of those concerns has opened up space for more meaningful connections, personal growth, and a deeper appreciation for the simple joys of life. As I get older, I find myself less concerned with what others think and more focused on living in alignment with my true self. The freedom that comes with shedding the need for approval is a gift that has enriched my life in ways I could never have imagined. Aging offers us a beautiful opportunity to let go of the need for external validation. The sooner we realize that our worth doesn't depend on others' opinions, the sooner we can experience a sense of peace and fulfillment that lasts. It's a journey, but one that is worth taking. 2. Stop wasting energy on arguments and drama. Imagine a retired man who, for most of his life, thrived on debates and proving his point. In his younger years, he was constantly engaged in conversations that turned into arguments, always eager to make his voice heard and win others over. The rush of victory in those debates gave him a sense of pride, and the excitement of intellectual battles seemed to validate his beliefs and opinions. But as the years passed and he entered retirement, something shifted. He began to feel the weight of all those years spent in conflict, time spent arguing over trivial matters, proving his rightness, and engaging in drama that only drained his energy. As he grew older, he realized the futility of these arguments. What had once seemed so important now appeared insignificant. The desire to always be right, to win the argument, had become exhausting. It wasn't bringing him happiness. It wasn't enriching his life. And it wasn't improving his relationships. The tension from constant debates had begun to wear on his peace of mind. And so, he made a conscious decision to let go of the need to argue, choosing instead to embrace peace. In his later years, he found that avoiding conflict and letting go of his need to prove himself led to a profound sense of relief. When faced with disagreements, he no longer felt the urge to fight. Instead, he would choose silence or walk away from situations that threatened to spiral into drama. What he had once thought of as strength, his ability to argue and stand his ground, he now understood was actually a source of stress and unease. Choosing peace over conflict brought him more contentment than any victory in an argument ever had. This realization resonates deeply with me as well. Over time, I've learned that my energy is too precious to waste on arguments that lead nowhere. When we engage in unnecessary conflicts, we spend our emotional and mental energy on things that don't add value to our lives. In many cases, the people we argue with don't change their opinions, and no one walks away from the conversation feeling better. Instead of finding resolution, we often leave feeling drained, frustrated, and upset. I've discovered that choosing silence or walking away is often the best course of action. In doing so, I protect my peace and conserve my energy for the things that truly matter. In the grand scheme of life, being right rarely leads to lasting happiness or deeper connections. But choosing peace creates space for understanding, growth, and a deeper sense of fulfillment. Letting go of the need for constant debates and drama has allowed me to focus on what truly brings me joy: relationships, personal growth, and simply enjoying life. As we age, we have the valuable opportunity to reflect on how we spend our time and energy. Engaging in unnecessary arguments only robs us of the peace we deserve. The choice to step back, remain calm, and avoid drama leads to a life that is richer and more harmonious. When we prioritize peace over being right, we open the door to a more fulfilling and contented existence. 3. Stop trying to fix everyone's problems. Imagine a woman in her 60s, a mother who has spent much of her life trying to solve everyone's problems. From helping her children through financial struggles to offering emotional support during difficult times. She believed that it was her responsibility to fix things for the people she loved. She spent countless hours worrying about their challenges, thinking that if she could just offer the right advice or take action on their behalf, everything would improve. For years, she dedicated herself to being the problem solver, always putting others first and sacrificing her own well-being in the process. But as she entered her 60s, she began to realize that this constant need to fix everything wasn't helping her children as much as she thought. In fact, it was draining her. She noticed that her efforts were sometimes met with resistance, and at times, her loved ones continued to face similar struggles despite her interventions. It dawned on her that by constantly stepping in to solve their problems, she was robbing them of the chance to learn, grow, and find their own solutions. She wasn't allowing them to develop the resilience or the skills needed to face challenges on their own. She started to understand that, while it was hard to step back, letting them face their difficulties was an important part of their personal growth. This realization was a turning point. She understood that stepping back didn't mean she cared less about her loved ones. On the contrary, it meant she trusted them to find their own way, just as she had to find her own way through life. As she began to prioritize her own well-being, she found that her mental and emotional health improved. She started spending more time focusing on her own passions, hobbies, and self-care, and in doing so, she realized that she had more to offer in her relationships when she wasn't constantly trying to solve problems for others. I've had a similar experience as I've grown older. I used to feel that it was my responsibility to fix every issue that came my way. Whether it was a problem at work, in my personal life, or for those I cared about. But over time, I've come to see that stepping back doesn't mean I care less. It simply means I trust others to handle their own challenges and that I've learned to focus on my own journey. We all have to walk our own paths. And while support is important, sometimes the best thing we can do for others is to offer encouragement and space for them to grow. Letting go of the need to fix everything has been a powerful lesson for me. It has allowed me to create healthier boundaries and to focus on what truly matters in my own life. I've learned that caring for others doesn't always mean solving their problems. In fact, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is trust that they have the strength to face their own struggles and learn from them. By stepping back, we give ourselves and our loved ones the opportunity to grow in ways we never could if we were always stepping in to fix everything. 4. Stop chasing perfection and letting go of regret. Imagine a man in his 80s, looking back over his life. For much of his younger years, he was consumed by the pursuit of perfection, always striving for the best. Always worried about making mistakes. and always disappointed when things didn't go exactly as planned. He believed that only perfection would bring him success, happiness, and approval from others, whether in his career, his relationships, or his personal goals. He never allowed himself to make mistakes or accept imperfections. The fear of failure drove him to push harder and harder, never feeling truly satisfied with his efforts. In his pursuit of flawlessness, he overlooked the beauty of the journey, the lessons learned along the way, and the value of imperfection. But now, in his 80s, as he reflects on his life, he sees things differently. The relentless chase for perfection now seems like a heavy burden, one that he could never truly carry. He has made peace with the fact that his mistakes were part of his unique path. Each misstep, each setback, was an opportunity for growth and learning. They shaped him into the person he is today. And in accepting those imperfections, he found an immense sense of peace. The idea of perfection, he realizes, was a source of constant stress. But it was also an illusion. Life, with all its ups and downs, doesn't require perfection, it requires acceptance, growth, and the willingness to embrace mistakes as part of the process. I can relate to this deeply. The idea of perfection was something I constantly chased for many years. Whether it was in my work, my relationships, or my personal endeavors, I was always striving to do things perfectly. But over time, I began to understand that this pursuit wasn't bringing me happiness. It was only creating stress and disappointment. I would spend so much time focusing on avoiding mistakes that I would miss out on the joys of the present moment. I began to realize that I wasn't allowing myself the freedom to grow and evolve because I was too fixated on an unattainable ideal. Embracing imperfection has been one of the most liberating lessons I've learned. I've discovered that mistakes are not failures. They're opportunities to grow and become better versions of ourselves. Perfectionism can be paralyzing, and the pressure it creates can hold us back from fully experiencing life. Once I let go of the need for everything to be flawless, I found a deeper sense of peace and contentment. I started focusing on progress rather than perfection, and this shift has made all the difference. It has allowed me to appreciate the beauty of the journey, rather than obsessing over the destination. Looking back, I now see that life is not about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about accepting ourselves, flaws and all, and embracing the growth that comes from every experience. Both good and bad, the mistakes we make, the imperfect moments, are all part of what makes us who we are. Letting go of the need for perfection has brought me a sense of freedom that I never could have imagined when I was younger. It's a reminder that it's okay not to have it all together. That growth, not flawlessness, is what truly matters in the end. 5. Stop accumulating unnecessary things. Imagine a couple in their retirement years, looking around their home and realizing how much they've accumulated over the years. For decades, they had worked hard to fill their space with things they thought were important: furniture, knick-knacks, gadgets, and items they believed they needed to live comfortably. But now, as they entered this new phase of life, they began to feel overwhelmed by the clutter. The house that once felt like a symbol of success had become a burden. There was just too much stuff, too many possessions to manage, too many things that didn't bring them joy, and too much time spent cleaning, organizing, and maintaining their material things. The couple made the decision to downsize. They began to let go of the excess they'd accumulated over the years, items that no longer served them, that no longer had meaning, or that simply weighed them down. With each box packed and each item sold or given away, they felt a sense of relief. The more they let go, the lighter they felt, both physically and emotionally. It was as if they were shedding not just material possessions, but the weight of past expectations, the pressure to own more, and the notion that happiness comes from acquiring things. As they downsized their home, they realized that their joy didn't depend on the stuff they owned, it depended on how they lived and what they experienced. They found true freedom in having less, without the constant upkeep and clutter. They had more time to enjoy the things that truly mattered, spending time together, enjoying nature, traveling, and pursuing hobbies they had long neglected. They found that the simple pleasures of life were far more rewarding than the things they once thought they couldn't live without. They had more time, more energy, and a deeper sense of peace because they weren't bogged down by things they didn't need. I can relate to this experience in many ways. Over the years, I've accumulated things that I thought would bring me happiness: clothes, gadgets, souvenirs, even books that I never read. But lately, I've been learning the value of decluttering, not just in my physical space but also in my mental space. I've realized that the more I let go, the more I can focus on the things that truly bring me joy, like spending time with loved ones, enjoying a walk in the park, or simply sitting in silence and reflecting on life. The more I release the need for material possessions, the more I realize that happiness doesn't come from what I own, but from how I live and the experiences I have. Decluttering has been a freeing experience, not just physically but mentally and emotionally as well. It's helped me clear out the noise in my life, to focus on what truly matters, and to make room for more meaningful moments. The things we accumulate over time can often be a source of stress, and letting go of them has allowed me to feel lighter, both in my home and in my heart. In the end, the pursuit of more things, more possessions, doesn't lead to lasting happiness. What truly brings joy is the freedom that comes from having less. When we stop accumulating unnecessary things, we open up space for more of what matters: connection, experience, and peace. It's a reminder that true fulfillment comes not from the material things we own, but from the richness of our lives and the simplicity of living with intention. 6. Stop trying to please everyone. Imagine a woman in her 70s who has spent her entire life bending over backward to make sure everyone around her was happy. From childhood, she learned to seek approval from others. And as an adult, she carried that mindset into her relationships, work, and family life. She always said yes when asked, even when it meant sacrificing her own time, energy, and well-being. She was the one people could rely on, the one who would never turn down a request, no matter how overwhelming or inconvenient. For decades, she thought that this was her role, to be the dependable one, to keep the peace, and to make everyone happy. But then, as she entered her 70s, something changed. One day, someone asked her for a favor, and for the first time, she said no. The weight of that simple word was immense. She was surprised at how freeing it felt. Saying no didn't cause the world to collapse. It didn't make her a bad person, nor did it cause people to abandon her. In fact, it gave her a sense of empowerment. She realized that she had spent so many years trying to please others that she had neglected her own needs and desires. She had always put everyone else first, but in doing so, she had lost sight of what truly mattered to her. Saying no was an act of self-care, an acknowledgement that her peace and happiness were just as important as anyone else's. This realization was a turning point in her life. For the first time, she began to set boundaries. She started to say no when she needed to. And, in doing so, she began to reclaim her time, her energy, and her joy. She found that she didn't have to be everything to everyone, and that by prioritizing her own happiness, she could actually be more present and loving in her relationships. Her no wasn't a rejection of others, it was a declaration of self-respect. It allowed her to focus on the things that truly brought her joy, without the pressure of trying to meet every expectation placed on her. I can deeply relate to this experience. For many years, I too tried to please everyone. I feared disappointing people, and I felt that saying no would make me appear selfish or unkind. But over time, I've learned that my peace and happiness are far more important than meeting everyone else's expectations. By saying no when necessary, I've been able to prioritize my well-being, and in doing so, I've created more meaningful connections with others. When we constantly bend to the will of others, we lose our sense of self. But when we stand firm in our boundaries, we allow ourselves to show up as the best versions of who we are. Saying no has allowed me to focus more on what I truly value, spending time with loved ones, pursuing passions that bring me fulfillment, and creating space for rest and reflection. It's not always easy to set boundaries, but it's a vital step toward living a life that is authentic and aligned with our own needs. In the end, the most loving thing we can do for others is to take care of ourselves first. When we prioritize our happiness, we have more to offer those around us. As we age, we realize that we don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. The freedom that comes from saying no is a gift we give ourselves, allowing us to live with intention and peace. It's a reminder that it's okay to put ourselves first sometimes, and in doing so, we can live a life that feels truly ours. 7. Stop rushing through life. Imagine a man in his 60s who spent the majority of his life in a constant rush. From his early years, he was driven by goals and milestones, always looking ahead, always planning the next step. Each day felt like a checklist, a list of tasks that needed to be accomplished, and he would race through them without ever truly pausing to take in the present moment. He believed that success came from achieving more, and in his pursuit of accomplishment, he often overlooked the simple pleasures of life. His time was filled with work, obligations, and a sense of urgency, as if there was always something more to do, more to prove, more to achieve. But as he entered his 60s, something began to shift. The rush to accomplish more seemed less important, and he started to feel the weight of the years spent rushing through life. One day, as he was walking through a park, something unusual happened. He slowed down. He stopped hurrying to get to his destination and began to truly notice the beauty around him. The colors of the trees, the sound of birds chirping, the breeze on his face. He realized he had missed so much of life by always looking ahead. As he continued to walk, he became aware of how deeply he was connected to the world around him. He wasn't just moving through it anymore, he was fully present in it. That simple walk became a metaphor for how he wanted to live his life moving forward. No longer was he consumed by the need to rush or to check off boxes. He began to savor each moment, allowing himself to appreciate the beauty of nature, the joy of conversation, and the peacefulness of slowing down. I can relate to this experience on a personal level. For much of my life, I too was caught up in the rush of daily tasks and the pressure to achieve. I often felt like I was running a race, and I couldn't stop until I had accomplished everything on my to-do list. But over time, I started to notice that I was missing out on the little things, the moments of joy, the quiet moments with loved ones, and the simple pleasures that life offers. I began to realize that slowing down wasn't a sign of weakness or a lack of ambition. It was an invitation to truly experience life. By slowing down, I've been able to connect more deeply with the people around me and the world I live in. I've found that when I take the time to really listen and be present, I enjoy a richer, more meaningful life. Life isn't just about getting to the next goal or milestone. It's about savoring the moments in between. The quiet pauses where we can truly appreciate what we have. As I've learned to slow down, I've also realized that rushing doesn't bring fulfillment. It only adds stress and anxiety. When we stop rushing, we can see the world with new eyes, and we can feel a deeper connection to ourselves and others. Slowing down has given me a sense of peace that I never experienced when I was always in a hurry. I've discovered that the joy of life comes from being fully present, not from checking off goals or racing against time. Living in the moment is one of the most valuable lessons I've learned as I've grown older. The pressure to hurry through life may still be there, but now I choose to embrace the beauty of slowing down. When we stop rushing, we make room for the things that truly matter: peace, connection, and the simple, beautiful moments that make life worth living. 8. Stop worrying about the future. Imagine an elderly woman who spent much of her life consumed by fear and worry about what the future might hold. She constantly wondered what would happen next, whether she would be okay, whether the decisions she made today would lead to the right outcomes tomorrow. She worried about health, finances, family, and the unknowns that lie ahead. For many years, she lived in a state of anxiety, always anticipating the worst and struggling to control what was beyond her reach. It was a habit she couldn't shake, one that followed her through the years and shaped much of how she approached life. But now, as she reaches her later years, something has changed. She has learned to stop worrying about the future. Through experience, reflection, and the passing of time, she has come to realize that worrying about what's ahead doesn't change the outcome. It only robs her of the peace she could have in the present. She began to trust that everything would unfold as it should, even if it didn't look exactly how she imagined. She realized that life is full of uncertainties, and no amount of worrying could prevent what was meant to come. This shift in perspective has brought her a new sense of freedom. Instead of being paralyzed by fear of the unknown, she has learned to focus on the day at hand. She appreciates each moment, knowing that it's the only time she truly has. With each passing day, she finds joy in the simple things: sunlight streaming through the window, a cup of tea, a conversation with a friend. She has learned that there is beauty in uncertainty, and that worrying about the future doesn't bring clarity or control. It only adds stress and distraction. I can deeply relate to this experience. For much of my life, I too was a chronic worrier, always thinking ahead, trying to anticipate every possible outcome, and stressing over things I couldn't change. But over time, I realized that the more I worried about the future, the less I was able to enjoy the present. Worrying clouds the mind and prevents us from seeing what is right in front of us. It's easy to get caught up in what could go wrong, but that fear doesn't help us navigate life any better. In fact, it only weighs us down. Letting go of that constant worry has been one of the most freeing decisions I've made. It doesn't mean I don't plan for the future or take care of my responsibilities. It simply means I no longer let fear about what might happen control my life. Instead, I've learned to embrace uncertainty and trust that things will unfold as they are meant to. Focusing on the present moment has given me a deeper sense of peace and joy. And I find that I can engage more fully with life when I am not constantly looking over my shoulder at what might come next. The more I practice this mindset, the more I realize that worrying about the future doesn't change anything. It only takes away from the time I have right now. Life is unpredictable, and that's okay. By embracing the unknown, I found a greater sense of calm, and I'm able to enjoy the simple pleasures of life without the burden of worrying about what's to come. As we age, we realize that time is our most precious resource. The future will unfold whether we worry about it or not, but it's the present moment that holds true value. Letting go of the need to control what's ahead and focusing on today has been key to finding peace in my life. I've learned that the more I trust in the journey, the more I can appreciate each step along the way. In the end, the happiest and most peaceful lives are not those lived in the relentless pursuit of more accomplishments, more possessions, more validations. Instead, the most fulfilling lives are those that embrace the art of doing less. This doesn't mean being lazy or neglecting responsibilities, but rather, letting go of the constant pressure to accumulate, to be everything to everyone, or to meet expectations that aren't aligned with our true desires. As we move through the years, the simple yet profound realization arises that it's not the striving for more that brings contentment, it's the ability to be present in the here and now. In our quest for success or recognition, we often miss out on the beauty and peace that already exist in our everyday moments. Whether it's the joy of a quiet morning, a conversation with a friend, or the simple pleasure of a walk in nature, these moments hold the key to a truly fulfilled life. One of the most liberating questions you can ask yourself is, what do I need to let go of to make space for joy? For some, it might be letting go of perfectionism or the need to constantly prove oneself. For others, it might mean releasing the grip on unnecessary possessions, people-pleasing, or the anxiety about the future. These are the things that often weigh us down, keeping us from truly experiencing the richness of life. When we stop clinging to what doesn't serve us, we make room for the things that bring true happiness, peace, presence, and meaningful connections. It's freeing to realize that we don't need to constantly chase after more in order to feel satisfied. Sometimes, what we need most is simply to slow down and appreciate what is already here. Letting go of the unnecessary, whether that's stress, clutter, or outdated expectations, gives us the space to breathe, to be ourselves, and to live fully in the moment. As we age, this becomes even more important. We realize that time is our most precious resource, and how we spend it matters. Doing less doesn't mean living less, it means living more consciously, more authentically, and with greater peace. So, as you navigate the journey through life, ask yourself, what can I release to invite more joy into my life? It may just be the most freeing thing you ever do. When we start living with less stress, less expectation, and less clutter, we create more room for the things that truly matter: happiness, connection, and peace. It's in doing less that we often find the most